Thanks a lot, Tiger.
Well, substance abuse, addiction, one of the key issues facing this country, doesn't get the attention it deserves, but it undergirds a lot of the disasters unfolding. You certainly know someone affected by it. Excuse me. After the break, we begin our months-long series on addiction and sobriety in this country. We hope you'll join us for that. We'll be right back. We're less than 20 years into the new century, 19 to be exact, and yet sometimes it feels like America is suddenly beset by a stunning array of terrifying social problems. Collapsing families, idle men, millions of them, rising suicide rates, declining life expectancy. These are not small things. They are big society-wide trends, and on some days, they seem intractable. What's causing them? Well, it's complicated. But there is at least one thing that all of these slow-moving disasters have in common. They are all, to some extent, driven by addiction. Nobody wants to say it out loud, but an awful lot of Americans are not in their right minds a lot of the time. They're hooked on something. You've seen the stats. They're grimly familiar at this point. They tell part of the story. America loses more than 70,000 people every year from drug ODs. The death rate from overdoses has tripled in the last 2 decades and is driven by an explosion in opioid abuse. You know all that. But it's not just fentanyl that's killing Americans. Abuse of more traditional drugs is also rising. For example, the death rate from cocaine overdoses has risen by more than 100% since 2003. And of course, there's alcohol, which is and will always be, most likely, the most abused drug in the West. Many thousands of Americans will die just this year from the cumulative effects of beer. So why is this happening, and what can we do about it? Well, a lot of people have thought about this for a long time, and the truth is, nobody's really sure. What we do know for certain is that people who are determined to get sober have the best chance of getting sober. But in order to break free of addiction, you really have to want it. You have to want it badly. And that raises a deeper question. Do we really want it? Is sobriety still a virtue in America? And by the way, should it be a virtue? Is it worth being sober? We think that's an issue well worth talking about and exploring at some depth. And so over the next several weeks on this show, we plan to do that. We're going to talk to people, some of them well-known people, who have fought for sobriety and won it. And we're going to ask them a really simple question. Was it worth it? What's your life like now? We begin our series tonight with a conversation with football great Joe Namath. He's the author of the book, All the Way, My Life in 4 Quarters. You write about your struggle to get sober. Now that you are, was it worth it?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Big time worth it. I've had some experiences throughout my life and have been knocked down a few times, certainly in sports. But the major part of it is knowing that this whole big game of life is a team effort. And having had some struggles, I have reached out and received some education and help from other people. And man, I'm around willing to help whomever I can.
How do you feel? Do you feel different now that you're not drinking?
Well, yeah. I feel different. I feel good about myself and the effort because I know addictions take place throughout our lives, or can take place. Many people can be brought to their knees for a variety of reasons. And I think we all can, actually. And addictions come in different shapes, forms. Alcohol is one of them, certainly. Opioids is another one. Everyday sugar, you can consider that kind of an addiction. And
that's
salt,
sure.
the kind of foods we eat. Yeah, man. So getting an education, getting help is important. And I know we have one instrument. We're the only one that can take care of this body and mind of ours. We need to put the effort in. We need to recognize the importance of how we take care of ourselves to be able to take care of the ones we love or be a part of this life in a loving way.
What was the key for you to getting over your addiction?
The key was love for my family. It was an embarrassing moment that occurred after I'd been sober for a number of years. I was challenged originally by my wife when my first daughter was a year and a half old to go get help, and I didn't think I needed help. I figured I could quit, and I didn't quit. So she challenged me again, and I promised her that I would stop. And this was dealing with alcohol at the time, and I became what I learned through Alcoholics Anonymous, that I became a dry drunk for 13 and a half years. I didn't have a drink, man. And then I found an excuse. I learned going through a divorce was an excuse for me. I was taught this later, to go back and drink. And I did that until I had an incident with a young lady that was during a football game, a halftime experience at a Jet game that, man, I didn't even remember. The next day I found out about it. And, I let a lot of people down, including myself, there with that kind of behavior. And I did reach out to get help. And I went and got an education, and I'm so thankful for it today. And, you know, Tucker, one of the good things about this that I've experienced being an athlete, being out there in the public over the years, I'll go through airports, man. I'll go into the grocery store. People come up to me, "Hey, Joe, how you doing? Up, nice, fine, you know." And then they lean over and whisper to me, "I'm a friend of Bill's." I say, "Hey, you don't have to whisper, you know, come on, we're in this together." For real, you know, I want to encourage them. Yeah, that's a good thing, man, and I do like to help out and encourage people. And throughout my life, people have come up to me, and I've learned, you know, good vibes, a smile. That's healthy. That's healthy. I want people to treat my children the way we treat one another, and I've been lucky.
Amen. There's nothing shameful about getting better. Joe Namath, a great man in a lot of ways. Thanks for joining us tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Tucker.
It's worth it, says Joe Namath. Clear-headedness. Not easy to get, but it's worth it. That's the first in what we hope will be a long series on sobriety in this country. How to get it, why it's worth having. Up next, students in California's public